Good morning. Welcome to the podcast of the Cowboys and Unicorns. I'm David.
Buenas tardes. This is Dan.
I don't even know what that means, Dan.
Good afternoon.
No tongues without interpretation.
Right. That was just good afternoon.
All right. Oh, it is afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah, it's 12:30, so I was just correcting you, but in a different language. And then
Wow, that's like super shaming. Like, not only am I going to correct you, but I'm also going to say it in a language that you can't understand, just to make you a double idiot.
So I have people all the time ask me, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And
Have you learned the response in Spanish?
No, I don't even know what it is in English.
I mean, you should say that you're a high level marketing specialist or something like that.
Right. I'm a high-end consultant.
For a luxury cruise company.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty. Just make yourself sound really important. That's all. That's key.
This guy last week from this other, I think he's from here, but he lives I think his wife's from the States. He lives in the Seattle area.
Okay.
But we were at our neighbor's house and he's friends with our neighbors or something. I don't know. And, he was complimenting Kaylee's Spanish, and then he was asking me what I was doing here. I don't know if he knew if we were married. And then she was like, he's learning Spanish. And the guy was like, I can tell. I was like, dang, I'm sorry.
Thanks a lot. At least I'm trying, okay?
No, it's all good.
I wonder if, you would know because you live there. Is there kind of the, similar culture to the U.S. of come on, you're in our country, speak our language? Or are they a lot less rude and judgmental that way?
I think it's just like the U.S. It's person to person.
Yeah.
So I think some people are like, how come you don't know it?
Right.
And sometimes I kind of agree with them. Yeah, I should probably figure it out. I am living here.
Right. No, I definitely think there is a piece of if you're going to move to a country, you probably should work on learning their language because that just makes sense. But it also isn't something to be wow, go back to your country unless you're going to speak our language.
It gives you a new sense of empathy.
Yeah.
As far as, a lot of those guys that work out at Riverview, and they only, they're working huge long days and they probably only have time to practice English, a little bit here and there.
Right.
It takes a lot of time to learn another language. So if you're a hardworking person and you only have an hour a week,
Yep.
It's going to take you a long time.
Yep.
So if you see someone and 8 months in, they're into a country and they're like, well, this person still only speaks Spanish. It's yeah, well, if they have a full-time job and a family or they're working 12 hours a day, they're probably going to go at a slow rate.
Definitely.
So, and that's kind of my goal is just go at a slow rate, keep taking the lessons, keep asking questions, keep speaking when I can.
Right. I mean, to be even trying it all, that's a good place to start.
But the people at my work, they're super nice. And they joke with me that I should learn Spanish more every once in a while. But they're all really, really nice. And
right.
And then a lot of people, they want to practice their English.
Sure.
So if you meet people and they're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to practice my English. You're going to help me out.
Right.
You're like, okay, sounds good.
So do most people speak at least some English, broken English there, or?
I probably need to meet more people to say that, but.
From your interaction?
So I work in an office that's probably 30 people, and maybe 8 of them know English pretty well.
Okay.
And then probably 10 of them know, or maybe another 8 know, they could talk to me in English, but the grammar would be wrong.
Right.
And then the rest of them probably just speak Spanish.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a business setting,
I think that's probably a fairly good
college educated people, probably most of them, or a lot of them. People
Right.
working in sales, marketing, and accounting, kind of, just regular.
Yep. So, I got on
My,
the news yesterday.
you got what?
I got on the news yesterday.
What news?
It's like WDAY or WDAZ, some Y or Z.
The television news.
Yeah. Because we went to, Gabe and I and John Franey, went to a disc golf tournament, but it's like run by the U.S. world champion, last year's U.S. world champion or whatever.
Dang.
And so he puts on like a clinic, and then you get 2 discs, like 2 Innova discs, his sponsor, and then you play like a little tournament that's fairly casual. And then there was a like a news company or whatever that was there, and on our very last hole, the guy had like shown up late, and so he came and videoed us throwing, and then at the very end of the whole event, he like came up to me and was like, "Hey, since I got footage of you, are you willing to like do an interview and talk about disc golf?" So I got to have like a 20-minute interview, and obviously they only aired like a minute and a half last night on the news, so I talked for like 10 seconds, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Think of all the like interview footage that those TV companies have that they could never use.
Right?
That if they were like more like internet minded, they could.
Well,
like,
exactly.
They should slap that 20-minute thing up on their YouTube page.
Exactly.
If they have one. I don't know.
He talked to me for, a solid 20 minutes. He had a lot of good questions. And then what actually makes the cut for the minute and a half is like, he plays like a clip from halfway through a sentence where I was talking, where it's like, doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense because there's not a lot of context and stuff.
Yeah.
But if he were to break that up, because he also interviewed the Nate Sexton, who's the U.S. champ, and, like one couple other people, like, could make a really good 20-minute YouTube video talking about disc golf, and it would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But,
obviously it doesn't fit with the television format, but.
Right. But, anyways, yeah, it would be interesting if news companies kind of had that perspective to do both. Like, we're gonna make content that fits the news, but we're also gonna make content that fits the online consumer a little more. That's a bit more of a quick, shortened documentary.
Yeah. Yeah, most news is really not long form, and if it is, it's like it's a 50-minute documentary that they like raised a bunch of money for, and
right.
Yeah. At the Cowboys and Unicorns podcast, we're all about low quality, long form content. So
definitely. Doesn't matter how good it is, just put as much of it out there as possible.
Long, man.
So, Dan, we need to like actually plan a crazy photo shoot while you're back.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to like get some. Oh, who do we know that has horses?
You're thinking like a nude calendar or something?
Ooh, we could make a calendar.
That'd be terrible.
So who do we know that owns horses, Dan? Do you know anyone in Morris area?
That owns horses?
Yeah.
I feel like the Feitenbergers, which are like a homeschool family that probably live like 15 minutes out of town.
Okay.
They might have. But I don't know them super well.
I mean,
make
their horses famous, so.
Yeah, right.
I think we need to get a unicorn horns and fasten them onto 2 horses and buy cowboy hats and like have a photo shoot where we're riding unicorns around.
We could check. UMM has a horse barn, and I don't know if they have horses there in the summer.
Yeah. I guess Hilly could edit a unicorn horn onto a horse.
That way we wouldn't have to bother the horse too much.
Right. That's probably a better idea.
Because I think if you ask someone, can I do a photo shoot with your horses, they might be open. But then if you say, like, can I attach the thing to your horse, they'll be like, what?
Yeah, can I duct tape this horn onto your horse as well?
Like, probably not.
They're like, no. And now you can't even use the horses at all.
Right.
You're a freak. So, you get to come back to the US of A.
I'm so excited.
Dude, when are you flying out?
Tuesday at like 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And then I think I'll then we go to Miami, and then I'll be in Minneapolis like at 11 a.m. Wednesday morning. And I think the plan is John and Tori are going to pick us up, and then we're going to go to the Mall of America, and then the Blazer crew might show up for a little brewery tour.
Ooh.
And then my good buddy Jordan Lightsky is finishing. So you have to take like these big lawyer tests to what's at the bar.
Oh yeah, the bar.
So he graduated from law school this spring, but I think Tuesday and Wednesday he's taking the bar exam.
Oh man.
So depending on what time he's done with that, he might be ready for a little brewery.
So like, it'll either be a brewery tour celebration, or it will be a distillery tour to forget about the fact that he just failed his bar.
I don't know if he gets the score back right away or not.
Oh, I suppose. Probably not. I'm sure there's
It's probably a lot of detailed answers because
right.
He said, so he was telling me like these exams are like 10 hours.
Right.
And I was like, what? And he said, like, I was talking to him this winter, and he said, well, I'm really used to them because like most of my tests in law school are like 6 to 8 hours.
That's insane.
I was like, I don't even really I have no perspective or frame.
Like, the longest test you've ever probably taken was like the SAT, which is...
I took the ACT.
Oh yeah, ACT. Like 3 hours?
Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, I was texting him like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I've just been studying 15 hours a day, all day.
That's so crazy. I mean, trying to think, my Salesforce certification exams, like those are really hard and intense, and I had to study a lot for them, but the test itself is only like 60 questions.
Yeah. You just have to be prepared.
Yeah, it's just like, it definitely takes studying, but I can't even imagine the mental capacity to do a 8-10 hour test.
Yeah. Yeah. It's impressive.
Yoinks.
But yeah, so I'll be in Morris on Monday the 30th.
Okay.
Because Charlie Kane's getting married on Saturday. And then have you heard of the brewery? It's like called Sociable Works or something.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
Like a cider type thing in North Cider.
Okay.
Brewery. They have a little festival on Sunday. I actually went to it last year with Charlie and Jordan and Amanda Bell.
Sure.
And so Kaylee and I are going to go with Jordan and Amanda because I think they have like some live music and I don't know,
Sweet.
beer and food trucks and stuff. So
yeah,
put Morris off for one more day to enjoy that.
Right. Yeah, and then we're gonna like have a bonfire and smoke a cigar and drink a different craft beer every single night for every other day that you're here.
That sounds perfect.
I was telling John and Gabe that like we gotta probably look at calendars now and try and at least like block off 4 nights for the Morris.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, I'm in Morris from the 30th to the 16th, basically.
Right.
I'll probably spend a few days in Wilmer at John and Tori's.
Yep.
But
we gotta go to Foxhole because that's probably one of my like top 5 breweries I've ever been to.
For sure. Yeah. So I have to work a little bit, but I don't think it'll be that much.
Yeah.
Because we figured out like what I make hourly on my salary with my Ecuadorian wages.
Right.
And it's like $4.16.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I told him I could do some stuff, but I think, in the context of going to work every day and then just like think like, okay, I make enough money to pay my bills. Like, it's not for that long.
Right.
Fine here in Ecuador, but I think in the States and like working, like you'll be like, okay, I'm going to work an hour and a half and that's enough.
Right.
I just basically want to work enough to keep my job.
I mean, you could definitely come sit in our office for a couple hours a day.
That would be kind of fun.
Because Beth usually is out for all the afternoons, so you could just like come sit in the office from like 1 to 5 with me, hang out,
make $20.
Right. That's
No, it's all good. Yeah, I don't know what the policies of that. I mean, I'm no longer an employee at Superior, so
I'm guessing they're pretty lenient, but if you actually would consider it, I'll just ask Beth. I'll be like, Dan has to work remote. Is it okay if he sits in your desk for a few hours on some afternoons while he's here?
I don't know if I left a good like brand at Superior, personal brand, because
I think you did.
No, probably okay, but somebody quit from our department, and a couple of that person used this term, and then one of my other coworkers used it as well, as that person danned. Like, I don't know if anytime somebody quits the marketing department, if it's great that they use the term.
Which is funny because there has been a lot of people who have left the marketing department.
Like, yeah, it was like, what about the 3 people before that quit?
Right. Like, why?
3 people quit while I was there. We didn't call quitting. We didn't change it to their name.
But maybe, I guess the difference is
I was bringing way more value.
Yeah, you had a lot of value. You were very high potential. And so they're like a high potential person that just like all of a sudden bails.
Okay, we can hope.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with for you.
Okay, that encourages me.
Yeah, I do. So, well, I had one other thing that I was...
I love how you're hosting this podcast. You're moving this along.
I am. I have one other thing, though, that I was like, I got to talk about this. And now it's left my brain, dude. Oh, I joined the gym. I joined Empowered Living.
Yeah, I saw that. You joined the cult.
I've, only been saying that I was going to do it off and on the podcast for like a year now, so.
I know.
Folks, I actually did it, and I paid for a year membership, so now if I don't go, I wasted a lot of money. So before you've officially joined or whatever, I just kind of assumed that maybe you went like once every 2 months on a free Saturday. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what it was.
Okay. Without knowing your workout schedule, that's what it appeared to be.
Yes. But I went 3 times last week, and I'm going to do 5:30 a.m.s Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those are the only times for sure that I'll go, but then they have a lot of classes and stuff, so then if I don't have something going on, I'll go. But
dude, people, like, just following people on Instagram, people are getting ripped doing it. Like,
Alyssa?
Stephanie and Alyssa are like, what are these moms are like, they would blow us out of the water.
Yeah, you should come with me for like a free Saturday just to feel like a complete pansy. Like, I'm doing workouts and I'm like grabbing 10-pound dumbbells, and Alyssa and Stephanie and all the other women that are there are like grabbing 35s and like finishing 10 minutes before me, and I'm just like, okay, excuse me, I'm going to go puke in the alley out back, and it's insane. Like, they're hardcore.
After like 3 or 4 months, if you do it consistently though, like you'll get used to the exertion.
Oh yeah. Like, I think even after doing it for a week, like the first 2 workouts were really, really bad. And then I was extremely sore. But then like after the last one, I felt pretty good. And as far as soreness goes, like, you're sore the next day kind of, but it's not like 2 days of actual pain when you walk upstairs and things like that.
Yeah.
But dude, have you ever tried a handstand push-up?
Yeah. No, I can't do those.
Yeah.
I tried it.
Those are complete insanity and made me feel like generally I'm a small enough person who's also like not in good shape, but not at all out of shape either. Like that weird middle line. And so generally I think I can at least, like I can do everything.
Yeah.
I might not be able to do it for an extended period of time, but like, okay, I can do anything. Handstand push-ups, I couldn't even do them. I was so frustrated.
I don't think a lot of people could do handstand push-ups, can they?
I mean, everyone at the gym can.
Really?
Yeah.
My gosh.
I mean, they're not like pure.
How far
It's using a wall.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's what I assumed.
And like most of them like could do a few just straight and pure, and then they like bend at the knees and then kind of kick up to get a little bit of momentum.
Okay. So the thing I don't understand about CrossFit is it seems like completing the workout is more important than form.
No.
Like the little okay, I can't do it, so now I'm gonna like kick and I'm gonna use like CrossFit form to finish this set out.
Oh, sure.
Where like I don't lift anymore, but when I lifted more like bodybuilding style, it's like you just try to keep perfect form or the correct form.
Right.
And then if you can't get it, you maybe go out of form a little bit and then you stop.
Right. So I think I mean, I've only been going for a week, so yeah, everyone, I'm an expert, but I mean, you have a coach for every class who's not working out. He's just they're actively just watching and giving tips on form and stuff. So I think that there's like a difference between bad form and modifying the workout in order to be able to do it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So like when I tried doing a couple, and then they're like, basically you can modify, like there's 5 different levels, right? So it's like you can modify to do this kick, so that you can actually still kind of do it. And that's like the next level of intensity. And then it's like, once I did a couple of those, but then I was still struggling, like then Corey was like, okay, now go try doing it this way. And then if you're still having a hard time, just do push-ups. Like,
yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Because then you're pushing, but you're still exerting.
Right. And like the coaches are totally it's more about push yourself as much as you can, but also the main reason I think that they don't just work out is so that they are making sure that you're using good form and not hurting yourself in what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that you are pushing yourself. So there's like that line of, they kind of have a couple different modifiers. Like there was, one of the Fightenberger people, she's pregnant and she was there.
Wow.
And so obviously she had to do different modifiers to every workout.
Fightenberg getting 2 shout outs on one show.
Yeah, right? That's kind of a small world.
Super random.
But yeah, it was kind of interesting, like seeing everybody and how they do all the stuff, but I'm definitely the newbie. Like, it's really humbling to have, and this is just going to sound dumb, but like generally you think that guys are stronger than women, and so then to have a woman or 5 or 6 who can do like 5 times as much weight and 10 times as many reps as you can and things, that's like the epitome of humbling.
The thing is like that's only true generally. Like,
right.
Okay, all the men versus all the women, okay, and like bone structure and stuff. But there's millions and millions of women that are like, and millions that are in like amazing shape that can do stuff that we could never ever do.
Right.
I mean, that's like the reality. It's not
Right.
like,
But yeah, like culturally, it's a humbling, like, it's easy for you to, I feel like it'd be really easy for someone to come to a Saturday workout and see like how impressive like these women are in the gym and be like, yep, I'm not coming back here because I don't want to be the weakest person. Like, it'd be fine if I was the weakest guy.
did you play sports, Dave?
I played football like 5th through 9th grade.
Okay.
That was it.
I think if you play sports, you have like a higher appreciation for like the athleticism of women, because
Sure.
like if you're in track, you're like, okay, there's all these teammates of mine that can do stuff I can't do at all.
Right.
Like they're doing like pole vaulting and stuff, and you're like, I would be terrible at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Like,
track is probably...
maybe they can't run 2 miles as fast as me, but they could definitely beat me in a 100-meter sprint.
Right. I think track is actually probably a good way to think about CrossFit in some senses of like, everyone is going to have, there's so many different types of workouts and things that you're going to do. And everybody's going to have the thing that they like. And like that they're definitely like the standout person in that type of exercise or lifting.
Yeah. Do you guys ever go for like 3-mile jogs?
So we were doing, that was where I felt the best. We were just doing 400-meter like sprints and stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, oh my gosh, I hate this. And I was running next to Tony Schultz. And he's like, you love running, don't you? I was like, yeah, if we were just doing this, like this would be my jam. Like I can at least feel like I'm in the top percent, which I think that's the important thing for me, is to at least feel like there's something that I can or am like in the top 10% of. And as long as I don't feel like I'm just like always at the bottom and I can't get to the top, then I definitely will. I'm competitive enough that it'll keep me coming back.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes it depends on like your level of competitiveness within an area versus how comfortable you are with other. Like, I went to this gym in Reading where there was like tons of like huge people and people on roids and
Yeah.
people really did it. You saw the same people every day because everyone was going every day.
Right.
And that was like really important to me at the time, but like lifting is not like the biggest thing in my life. It's not like
Right.
a huge identity thing. So I love the atmosphere because I was like, everyone here is really trying hard, and this is like helping me maybe try harder than I normally would.
Yep.
Because I'm not a fanatic, but I like the atmosphere, you know?
Right.
Whereas if I like really cared and this is my primary thing, maybe it would have been harder because I might have been more discouraged. Like,
oh, definitely.
Like, oh gosh, like I think this is the number one thing in my life I'm trying to be good at, and I'm like, I'm completely in the middle here.
Right. Well, and there's a difference too between like in Reading, if you know, there's hundreds of people working out at the gym, and there's hundreds of thousands of people in the city, or I don't know the population, but
It was like 90,000.
Okay, so there's 100,000 people in the city. Like, it's not like you're gonna be coworkers or working with a family member of all the people that you see in the gym and run into them at the grocery store, and like, there's not all that feeling the need to perform because you're gonna see these people on a daily or weekly basis, and you're like, yeah, they're, like that need of feeling like those people won't see you as, oh yeah, I see David in the gym and he's just like obviously weak or whatever. I don't know. That also is probably just partially me.
Yeah.
Because I'm very much affirmation and validation and feeling like I'm doing a good job at things.
Do you want to go for runs when I'm in Minnesota?
For sure.
Yeah.
So you want
to go for like 5-mile runs? Like, are you cool with that? Or
like 3 to 5 is what I like. Anything beyond 5, I get a little bored.
We could do the loop through. In high school, we called it Safari, but
through
from your house, not through Palm, the gravel road on the other side, the closer side.
Yep.
We could do that loop. That'd probably be like from your house, like 3.5, 4.
Yeah, it's like 3.5, and you could make it 4 pretty easy depending on how you run the university.
And then it's closer to 5 or 6 if you do the palm loop. Probably 5.5.
Yeah. So, shout out to my brother-in-law, Christian Tilke. He was going for the 60-mile week this week. So he woke up at 5:30 every morning and ran 3 to 4 miles. And then first thing at 5 after work, he was running 6 or 7 miles.
So he's actually listening to Tony.
Yeah. So he was running 10 miles a day.
Tony's his coach, right?
Yep.
Tony was the assistant when I was running at UMM. And Tony would always tell me to run in the summer, and I wouldn't do it.
Well, I think so.
I think Tony, after my class, Tony found they recruit a bunch of kids that listened to them.
Yeah.
And actually worked out in the summer, and I think it's helped their team.
So, I might be oversharing for Christian, but he ran in like 10K just the other week, and he hadn't been running a whole lot. Like, he'd been running casually, so like maybe 5 to 7 miles 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But he ran, and then he, his coach, Tony, and then there was some kid from the Morris High School, who I guess is really good, who he kind of tried to keep pace with. So the high school kid took first, his coach took second, and he took third.
Yeah.
And I think he was kind of disappointed in the fact that he wasn't able to win.
Yeah.
And so it was like a week and a half later that he started running every single day as much as possible. So
when I was running, Tony was training super hard. I don't know if he still is now or not. Obviously, pretty good. He's beating somebody on his team.
Right.
But he was training hardcore, and he ran a marathon and ran like 240, 245.
Oh my gosh.
Like 15, 20 minutes under 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what that is per mile. It's probably like 6 something per mile.
Right.
Probably like 640 something, 645 or something. I don't know.
Right.
But,
well, I think that like they were keeping like a 6-minute average on the 10K or something.
Yeah, that's good.
Which
that's
is like
good.
hardcore.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. Like they started out the first mile. Christian said they did the first mile in like, I think it was 5:15. Like just because the 3 of them were kind of being competitive with each other. So,
yeah.
Like
that probably wasn't smart, but
no, it wasn't. That's what Christian said. He was like, yeah, I shouldn't have tried to keep pace with them like out of the gate. And he was like, then I probably would have been fine because I would have caught up to him just a little bit later. And I would have been able to keep a faster pace overall versus starting out fast. But
my senior year in high school, at like the regionals for track, that in the 2 mile, the top 2 people go to state, and I was trying to go to state.
Okay.
And so I was like, there's probably 2 people that are better than me.
Yep.
So coming in, I was probably in 3rd. So like, I'm going to have to run really fast.
Right.
So I led the first 5 laps, so a little over a mile. And the first mile I ran, my goal was like, okay, I'm going to run a 5-minute mile for the first one and then see if I can hang on.
Right.
So I ran like 5:01 the first mile, broke the wind for everybody in front.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting 4th. I should have got 3rd, but I kind of like broke down emotionally on the last lap.
Oh man.
Because it was the end of my career and some skinny kid passed me at the end. But it didn't matter. Like I was going for 2nd. So
right.
Since I was getting 2nd, I was like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy in distance running.
Yeah.
There's sort of an anxiety of like, because you can't just go all out. You're like, okay, I have to go fast, but I can't go too fast because then if I go too fast, then I'll die.
Right.
And then I'll slow down and my time will be bad. So you're in this constant state of what's the right pace.
Yeah, I feel like you definitely have to be running a lot and be super aware of like what your body's limits are.
There's a lot of listening to your body and figuring that out and understanding like, is breathing this hard good, or do I need to breathe harder, or not as?
Right.
It's like a pain management. Like in a race, you should like never be comfortable.
Right.
but you shouldn't be so uncomfortable that you're going to collapse in 30 seconds.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental resilience that you have to do stuff like that.
Yeah. It's fun though.
Yeah. I mean, that's
it's super good training for life because it's like managing pain.
Exactly. See, in a weird way, that was kind of like, I used to just run like 3 miles every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of that, like, basically, I'm going to try and push myself to see how uncomfortable I can be and still push through it. Like, building mental strength just through exercise, I think, is actually a really good practice. Because if you can push yourself to continue doing something while you're uncomfortable when you don't have to,
mm-hmm.
you're going to know then when you actually have to, whether it's in like a relationship or a work thing, like you're going to know, okay, I can do this because I can push myself. I've proved to myself that I'm able to push my mental limits of what my body thinks it can do for speed and all that stuff, for distance. And
I think it just makes you more aware of like how hard you have to work for something. And then it makes you aware of what you're willing. So like, I don't know, I've run a couple marathons before, and for some reason, the time and finishing and doing well and like trying my best really matters to me. And so I'm able to, I guess, push through things or push through pain.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of things that don't matter to me, and if it gets hard, I quit.
Right.
And so I think it's sometimes, if there is a couple things in your life where you're good at that, then you sort of realize like, oh, that's what it takes.
Right.
And then I think you can find out quicker, like, oh, I'm probably not going to be super good at this other thing because I don't care about it enough to push through the hard of what would actually make me good at it.
Right. Yep. You can, when you spend that much time like on something like distance running, you understand fully the commitment it actually takes to be the best at something, or like be in the higher.
I mean, the thing with distance running is like maximizing your own potential.
Right.
Because
So
there's probably a limit on like because a lot of it has to do with, they call it like your VO2 max.
Okay.
Like your ability to process oxygen is a big part of distance running. How quickly, like the rate at which I'm butchering all the science, but
yeah,
your ability to process oxygen and then like what you're doing with it, what's the acid that builds up in your legs?
I can't think of the term, but
yeah. So
yeah.
But the thing with distance running is like anyone can get better at it than they are now. Like all you have to do is run more.
Right.
And like you will get better.
Right. Yeah, it's just most people don't have takes a lot of mental strength.
Yeah. It's the same with CrossFit or lifting. Like anyone can be better. It doesn't take there's probably special genetics to be exceptionally good, but anyone could be twice as good as they are now lifting if they have never lifted before.
Yeah, definitely.
That's part of the fun of some of those things is like those. Like I bet if you do it consistently, I bet like after your first 6 months of CrossFit and you don't drink too much beer, like.
Oh yeah.
You'll see lots of gains in that first probably 6 to 9 months.
So after.
Then it'll get hard to get better.
After it's been 2 weeks of consistently working out. I'm already 4 pounds lighter than I was.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I put on much more like calorie burning.
Right, a lot more calorie burning, and I've been in the last 2 months because of my gallbladder stuff. I had been starting to form better, healthier eating habits. So then the combination of eating healthier and then suddenly kickstarting my metabolism because now I'm actually being active is okay, that little bit of dad weight that I'd put on in the last year.
Dad weight.
Because I was basically 180, at the line of 180. And I consistently for the last probably 7 years have been 168 has been my normal weight.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That picture we took right before I left.
Yeah.
You shared it. That was like probably some of the heaviest I've been. I think
Yeah.
I was like a little over 220 that day.
Oh man.
But I'm like down to like the 206, 207 range.
Okay. You're a
But
tall dude though.
yeah, I'd love to get back down to like 180, 185.
Sure.
That's what I was when I quit track in college, and I was like real lean and quick and could jump.
Right. So the conversation about like choosing what things that you want to be best at and stuff is kind of an interesting segue to something we were talking about around a campfire. Would have been 2 nights ago when Gabe and John and I were up at the disc golf tournament. So I'm kind of realizing that anything that I do, I pretty much attach it to part of my identity.
Yeah.
Which means that then, like, being successful at it is, like, super important to me. And I don't think it's necessarily a healthy thing. Like, both of them are totally people that it's like, yeah, I don't really necessarily associate, like, so in a disc golf tournament, I get far more frustrated and end up doing worse because it's like, I end up, like, to me, if I'm going to be someone who spends a bunch of time playing disc golf, then I want to be someone who associates as a disc golfer. And so then if I'm not playing as well as I should be, like, my mental game, like my mental response, just without thinking about it, is like, wow, I'm bad at disc golf. Instead of being able to like compartmentalize, like, wow, I played poorly or I threw a bad shot. Like,
yeah, like that hole wasn't very good.
Right. Like, because I tend to, anything that I get into, I like associate it to like, oh, I'm going to identify with this as part of who I am.
Yeah.
Then I tend to respond with, if I do poorly at that thing, then it's like, oh yeah, I'm bad at that. Instead of, and I think part of that might be the fact that I didn't play as many sports, because like Gabe is fantastic in competition, and he's also just like super athletic and very good at disc golf, but he has a lot more of like that mental, okay, if I don't execute well on this hole, I don't take that into like, oh man, I'm just not good. I shouldn't even be playing at this level.
Right.
It's just, okay, I know that I could have done that well. So the next hole, I'm going to do what I know I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, like, are you someone who attaches like, so running, would you be like, I'm a runner. It's kind of a part of something that is my identity. And so then you take a lot of pride, but also a lot of shame in successes or failures or whatever in it? Or is it just kind of like, I enjoy running, it's a recreational thing, it's fun?
So, I mean, there's a bit of a story to this, but when I was a kid growing up, I did basketball workouts all the time, and all my goals and my goal books were like basketball related.
Sure.
And I really measured myself by how I did playing basketball from game to game, or whether I was on the JV or the varsity or whatever.
Right.
And I joined running joined cross country on a whim. My dad was like, oh, maybe you should do it. And I was like, okay. And then I joined track my junior year, coming off of like not a very good basketball season.
Sure.
I was like in this awkward, like, I'm not a senior, and I ended up being like the 8th or 9th guy, but I wasn't on the JV anymore either.
Right.
It was like, oh crap, I'm a bench player. Like, I'm gonna have to wait till my senior year. And I joined track with like no expectation, like a little bit of a goal, because I wanted to, but not like, I didn't put any pressure on myself in running.
Yep.
And I put tons of pressure on myself in basketball, and I ended up like being way more successful at running and then like competing in college. I mean, albeit on a D3 level, but
yeah.
So running for me was kind of like this interesting case study in, oh, I care about this less, which is actually making me perform better.
Right.
I'm pretty free, and so And after I got some success, I was maybe a little more tight, like trying to, protect that I was good at it or I was competent.
Right.
But for some reason, I was always better at compartmentalizing it and really running free.
Right.
And so, yeah, so running for me, I think I definitely identify with it. To me, it's a little bit more about whether I'm doing it or not, like whether I'm being consistent.
Right.
Like I have a hard time, like if I haven't run in a week, I'm like, am I really a runner?
Right.
But it shifts too because like I'm an adult now, and so I'm not. I know I'm not like training at some like elite level or something.
Right. You're not really competing except for if you choose to go run in a marathon or something like that.
Yeah. The thing is I usually do better than I think I will when I enter competitions.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like pleasantly surprised.
Right.
So yeah, I don't. But I definitely like identify with you on like if I do something and then I'm like, well, I don't want to be average.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely realizing I need to work on like, I have a hard time. I think it's because I feel guilty about spending time on like hobbies or things that I'm like, oh, it's casual. Like, well, why would I waste my time on just like picking up a hobby instead of deciding on some things that I'm passionate about and investing in them?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like disc golf should fall into like a hobby, like something that I really enjoy, and I can be somewhat competitive on like a recreational level, and it's good quality time to hang out with a bunch of friends. Like, I should just let it be that. And so it's kind of a interesting thing that I'm kind of trying to figure out is how do I let some things just be hobbies, just be things that I can enjoy, and like I can push myself and challenge myself to a point, but not make it something that it's like, oh, I can't have a hobby unless it's like, if it's something that I enjoy, I have to make it something that I'd identify with, and I'm gonna invest into it and try and be the best at it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of just a weird thing that I've been more aware of, which ties to that, the Enneagram discussion we've had of being a type 3, which is the achiever, right?
Yeah.
Like, basically, by default, everything that I'm doing is out of a feeling that I don't really have worth outside of my achievements. And so I'm always trying to do things that then other people will recognize and affirm and validate. So, like, it makes sense, but it's interesting because it's never been something that I've been mentally aware of until, like, the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out.
So then it's like, okay, now that I'm aware of this, what's the healthy response?
Yeah. Did you see my post about, like, getting rid of all my goals?
Yeah.
Did you read it or did you see it?
I haven't read it yet.
No, you don't have to read it.
I want to read it, but I haven't read it yet.
A couple weeks ago, I was just feeling like, so sometimes when I set goals for myself, I'm like, okay, this is the right thing to do. This is what everybody says. Like, write them down, look at them,
Yep,
review them. But I always feel like then I'm working towards zero. For some reason in my mind, a goal is working.
Like to get to where you should be? Like,
yeah,
baseline?
For some reason mentally, I see the goal as like, that's zero. So I feel constantly behind.
Right. Okay.
I always worry about whether my actions are mapping to my goals. Like, I think I have this fear of being a hypocrite. Like, okay, you say that's your goal, but like you slept in today. And then feeling bad about that. Like, oh, I'm not. And then it's hard to actually know whether what you're doing is enough or not to reach that goal.
Yep.
And if you set a lot of goals or you're kind of ambitious, then what you're doing probably isn't enough.
Right.
And so I just like deleted my Google Docs. I deleted like the paper I had in my notebook about like some of the goals I had before 30.
Yep.
And I was just like, I'm going to focus on every day. Just like, how can I make my days where working on things that I know will contribute to things that I care about success in.
Yeah.
So I care about being a good writer. So if I can do stuff every week that will maybe help me become a better writer, then that's enough. And if I can run 5 days a week, then I know that contributes towards me being in shape.
Right.
And
do you still kind of like maybe just mentally have like, maybe it ties more to purpose? Like, here are the things that I think give me purpose in life. So here's my 5 things that basically my goal is to continue to do them.
The thing is I don't know if I actually got rid of my goals,
Right.
or if I've always done better if they're more internal.
Sure.
Because I feel like then if I accomplish something, it wasn't something that I like. It was I know it's like the opposite of what they say about goal setting. Like, they shouldn't just be internal.
Right.
But for some reason, I feel like then once I do it, then people can look and be like, oh, he did the work.
Right.
I don't have to like basically say something and then try to live up to it. I don't want to. I don't do well with the pressure of like, oh, I need to live up to something I said. Right. I would rather slowly work every day and then prove that whatever the result is, like, well, he worked hard enough to get that result. Right. And if that's a good result, then sweet. And if it's lame, then I never said I was going to do better, so you can't. I think it's like that it's the fear of judgment of like, oh, he tried, but he failed. Part of it.
But no one knows what your personal, it's not like your goals are a public document that people can look at and be like, oh, Dan didn't make his 2-year goal.
That's the dumb thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's where I'm not being very rational. There's a private Google Doc.
So it's just interesting that you're talking to, so like, you're on this is why I wanted to read it. So you're on I deleted my goals, and I just finished reading The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn, and I'm working on, so like the last hour of the audiobook is actually him working through goal setting, like talking you through, okay, so now do this, and then like come back and listen to this once you've done this part. So I'm working right now on setting goals because I've never actually been someone who's written them down. And for me, more than like goals of I want to run 5 times a week or that type of a goal, the reason that I'm really interested in it is he's talking, it's probably a lot more from like a financial perspective than anything, of like, if you don't have goals to define what your like where you want to be in 5 years, then it's really hard to actually be financially responsible and like limit yourself when you're like, oh yeah, I want to buy a new pair of shoes, or I want to go spend $50 on discs or whatever it is.
Yep.
Because you don't have bigger goals to align to, we tend to be far more like fly by the seat of our pants with like, oh, I paid my bills and I have, I could spend $100 on this. Where he's like, if you have goals, when you're like, I could spend $100 on this, you're able to look and be like, oh, but one of my goals is to travel, take a vacation once a year, or to be able to buy a brand new car in 5 years. And so do I really want to spend $100 on this right now, or should I put this $100 towards something that I thought it was important enough to write down as like, in 5 years, I really do want to be able to do this, right? So it's maybe...
No, I'm not saying my way is the best way, and I think part of it is because of like some hangups I have about performance.
Right.
Like, well, anxiety I get about like performance. Right. And so sometimes I think I perform better when I don't have goals.
Right.
Because I can get very like, I can think about them every day and I can obsess over them, and I can like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom. Now I'm thinking about how I'm not doing enough.
Right.
There's an obsessive component to like the way my brain works that I have to like protect myself from.
Yep.
Because I can get really OCD and for some reason I've just noticed that I perform better when I just have something internal and I just kind of work towards it.
Right.
But that's for me. For other people, maybe
Yeah.
they need to get it out on paper so that they don't.
Right. I think it's interesting because you and I are very, very different in like our like how we're driven and all that. So it's funny that like you have this whole list of goals that you've had, and yet those aren't necessarily actually productive for you. And then
I think the other thing is sometimes I pull out numbers I just pull out a number that I think is good.
right, you create a goal just for the sake of having a goal, not actually because it's
So I'm like, okay, before I'm 30, I want to self-publish a novel and sell 1,000 copies.
right.
And then for some reason that number becomes my zero. Like I need to reach that.
Right.
But I just pulled that number out of my head. I didn't
Yep.
it's just the number. It doesn't really map to my happiness on a day-to-day level.
Right.
And now I've like made it so that my happiness is somewhat does that make sense? Like
Yeah. It does.
I'm making like, maybe it's because I'm making uninformed goals.
Right.
Like one goal that I deleted that I still basically like internalize and probably still have was I want to run a sub 3-hour marathon before I'm 30.
Sure. Yep.
So I deleted that goal, but it's still that one hung around with me more than any of the writing goals I had.
Yep.
Because because that was the real goal. Like that was actually based on real data of what I could and can't do.
Right.
Whereas the other ones, I have no idea whether.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea whether my blog can get 1,000 subscribers, 540, or 10,000.
Right.
Like, so if I pull out a number, I'm just guessing, and then I'm working towards something that I guessed on.
Right.
And I think that's what probably creates more anxiety.
Yep.
Whereas I know, like, I run a marathon at 3:16 and 3:24.
Yep.
So if I was more focused and did a better job, I could probably get it down.
Yep. Yep.
That's based on like real experience, and so there's less like noise around that goal.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean that's a far more actionable goal because you can look at that and you can say, okay, here's the things that I need to do that. And I know personally that it's practical and that it's attainable.
Yeah.
Whereas, you don't necessarily, like maybe a more practical goal of your blog would just be to see continual growth or, reach more viewers every 6 months or, whatever, like.
I have a confession to make. I deleted the Cowboys and Unicorns goals from our Google Doc as well.
Who do you think you are? I haven't looked at them, so it's okay.
Yeah,
So, interestingly for me with the goals thing, I think it's actually going to be healthier for me to set, like a few main goals based on like, these are the things that I actually think are purpose for my life. Because since I have such a achiever mindset, I think what my pitfall is I have all these internalized goals or these things that I want to work towards. But also my other thing is basically I'm going to try and take on as much as humanly possible in order to get the affirmation of all sorts of other people. And so by actually having some bigger goals, it will help me to actually then, like, if I'm thinking about, well, should I take on this new responsibility because I think that people will validate me for it? Like, I can look and be like, you know what? Like, it doesn't make any practical sense, or it doesn't line up with what I've already defined as my main goals. And so I'm not going to do it.
Do you think, maybe this is a little bit different, but
yeah.
So like, if you find out or discover like, oh, I'm really driven by external affirmation.
Yep.
Like we are. Do you think it's good to press into that and be like, okay, I'm going to do things where I get some external affirmation? Or do you think that's unhealthy? Because I've kind of gone back and forth with that. Like,
right.
Should I accept that and then set up my life where I can get affirmed every week?
Right.
Or
so I think
like that's faulty. Like it seems more efficient if I could figure out how to be happy within myself and not dependent on other people's actions.
Right.
Not trying to squeeze out positive words from other people.
Right.
Or not needing that. Like, I know I need other people. That's good to know.
Yep.
I will never deny that. I will never think I don't need other people or some level of affirmation. But at the same time, I don't want to be dependent on other people's actions for my own, like, mental health.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, what the type 3 basically says is the pitfall is like at probably like the unhealthiest level. Someone like me basically feels like outside of the things that you do, like the actual physical things that you're doing on a daily basis for others, like you really have no value. Like you basically don't truly believe that you have intrinsic value. You know, like for me as a Christian, like you kind of lose perspective of the fact that like God created you in his image, and because of that you have value. Like,
right. Like I would look at other people and go, they have intrinsic value. Doesn't matter what happens. They have value.
Right.
But that's harder to say about myself.
Exactly. So like if
I don't do anything for a week, I'm probably not going to be feeling like I have intrinsic value.
Right. Exactly. So being aware of that, it's kind of that balance of, yes, you need, like, it's not bad that you, like, I'm a words of affirmation person. Like, that's a love language. And so, especially the people who are closest to me in my life, like, I think it's healthy to make sure that they're aware of the fact that, like, hey, like, I need words of affirmation. So, like, for me, like, if I come home and I make dinner and I do the dishes, like, or if I clean the house on a Saturday, like, I actually, like, as dumb as it sounds, I need my wife to say, hey, David, like, the house looks great. Thank you for doing that.
Right.
Not just like well, you know that I appreciate that you did that. Like,
mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to necessarily say outright, like, hey, like, looks great. Thank you. You know that I appreciate the fact that you do that because I've said that I was frustrated you didn't do that 2 weeks ago. Right? Like, so the people who are really close in your life, I think it's important that they understand, like, that affirmation is really healthy for you. But definitely, I think it's something that I have to at least push against of
relying on
it. So like, I kind of so John Franey needed help with some basement stuff. This was like a year ago, like when they're moving into their house. And he asked a group of people and no one responded. And I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to go do manual labor to like show that I'm a good friend and like be like, yeah, I'm the person who actually showed up. And,
right. You count on me.
Right. So like I may have neglected, like I don't remember, but like I would be the type of person to neglect my own need of like, hey, this is my only Saturday off. I could sleep in, or like I could go like take some time for me, or even my house needs these things done. And I would completely neglect those things that are like needed in order to get the affirmation, because otherwise, like, if I stick around home and I take time for me, or I do something that no one else knows needs to be done, like, if I don't get affirmation or validation for it, it doesn't feel like it was even worth it. So,
okay. Yeah.
Right? So like, if I work on like cleaning up the basement storage room that's needed to be cleaned up for months, and I'm the only one who knows that it needs to be done, and I'm the only one who cares about it, like, I don't feel like that was actually valuable time, even though it needed to be done, because there's no one saying, wow, the basement room looks really nice. Like,
yeah,
this is an awesome space. Like, it's just
for me, that's when my OCD is a benefit, and I feel super if I clean the basement. It doesn't matter if anybody sees it.
Right. See, like, I'm totally to a very unhealthy fault at times in, like, I will make the decision based on, completely based on what I think will get me, people will recognize and affirm that I'm good at it, therefore I'm getting value out of it, even if it's not the practical or the right choice at all. So for me, understanding that, it's really helpful. So like Brené Brown talks about in The Power of Vulnerability, she talks about her boundaries mantra, which is choose discomfort over resentment. So like for me, basically if someone doesn't actually give me affirmation after I do something for them, like I feel like I didn't do a good job, or I'll just be resentful of like, wow, I just went and did all this for you and you didn't like say good job. But the person may not have even needed my help or whatever. And
Yeah.
doing it because I thought that I would get validation. So one big thing for me is like, if I'm ever anything now that it's like, if somebody ever asks you to do something, she says that mantra 3 times before she responds. So it's like, hey Dave, will you come, help me do some landscaping today? Like, I have to stop and I have to say that 3 times. And I added to that mantra. So like I say, choose discomfort over resentment. And then your self-worth is not in the things that you do. So remind myself that 3 times and then decide, okay, am I going to spend my Saturday helping somebody do this? Like, or am I going to get done with it? I want to be like, wow, I just helped this person. All they gave me was, mac and
Lemonade.
cheese for lunch. And I like, there was something that I should have done at home anyways. And so now I'm just like, wow, that friend obviously didn't appreciate it enough because they didn't actually like display their appreciation, and I neglected things that I should have done otherwise anyways. So
Yeah. That's interesting.
being aware of that for myself and then having a mantra like that so that then I can like, okay. And I mean, it was hilarious because John and I went through the book together just a couple weeks ago. And then like this was the easiest, smallest way that I should have practiced it. But we went to go play disc golf at a random course we've never played before. And this random guy walks up to us and is like, hey, do you mind if I join? And me, and this doesn't have to do with like validation, but like instead of the uncomfortableness of like, no man, like we're just playing a round together, I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then the entire rest of the round was just like, the guy wasn't very good, so he threw 3 times to every 1 time that each of us threw, so it took twice as long, and he was swearing, and he was playing like 90s rock and roll music really loud, and you'd be trying to get ready for a shot, and was distracting, and all this stuff. And so I was super resentful of the fact he was there. And the funny thing was, like John, since we'd gone through this and he knows I'm working on it, he's like, wow, good job, Dave. And I'm like, well, what should I have done? And he's like, choose discomfort over resentment. And I'm like, oh man. Like, yep, that's what I should have done. And there's so many times that I think all of us do that, but especially the type of people who are far more like, focused on others' needs and focused on like what others might think.
Yeah.
We tend to choose, we'll be like, yep, I'll do it. I'll do the thing. And I'll resent you for a week afterwards because but I'll do it. Whereas like someone like John, who is not that type of person who's motivated by what anyone else cares, like, it's easy for him to just be like, no, but you can play ahead of us if you want to. Like,
yeah.
He doesn't necessarily have that same struggle in the ways that like And now that I'm aware of it, I do that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
my default is yes, and I'll resent you for it later.
Yeah. I think it depends for me on the situation, but I relate a lot to what you're saying. And the interesting thing is, so I had a similar, not a similar thing, but so sometimes, you're afraid of what the other person says if you say no, or if you go back on something you said you could do, and then you're like, actually, no, something came up, I can't do it. Like,
right.
I think people like us, we're really afraid of that. Like,
oh yeah.
What are they going to say? They're going to think like I'm a crappy person. Like, even if I don't know them.
Right.
You're like,
yep.
And so I have an example of this. Like, recently I had reached out to this person, to write, a blog post for one of my clients.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, I actually run this like digital agency in Bloomington or something.
Sure.
And, they're like, what do you do? And, so there's like a little networking, and then like he referred me to this other person who needed someone to write some blog, like to take care of their blog.
Yep.
It was like this startup for like, it was like this tech startup for like temp hiring for dental hygienists in Minneapolis or something. So I talked to this guy, who runs this founder of this company. And I kind of tell him a little about myself, and then he's like, he wants me to run this blog, and so I was like, I'll come up with a couple of sample posts for you or something. And then I sort of do more research into the type of blogs and the content.
Yep.
And I have no expertise in this, and I don't really know how to, I don't know where to go to get content for this.
Yep.
Like, you can't just write out of thin air about something you don't know about. You're like,
right.
I need a source. I need humans, or I need research in order to write something. And I'm not going to write something that's not somewhat original.
right.
Or somewhat different. I'm not going to plagiarize or something, So I email the guy back, and I'm like, sorry for this 180. I can't do this.
Yep.
And then he was like, because we had talked about Facebook ads, and he's like, could you do some Facebook ads? And instead of being recognizing no, I actually can't really take another client on. I have 2 other clients and a full-time job.
Right.
I was like, yeah, sure.
Right.
I mean, it's maybe and 2, it's not much. That's maybe a 2-hour commitment a week.
Yep.
And then I eventually decide you know what? I don't really have much time to freelance, because I have 8 hours of work plus 3 hours of commute time. I'm gone from 8 to 7:30, sometimes 8 every day.
Right.
So then I have to email him again and say I actually have recently accepted a full-time thing, and I can't do it. So I'm feeling terrible, right? I am the worst person. I told this guy I could do 2 different things.
Right.
I wasted his time. I talked to him on the phone for 25 minutes one day.
Right.
He's trying to start a company. I'm only wasting his time. I'm providing him no value.
Oh man.
And I just feel like I'm the worst. And both times he responded I totally understand. Thanks for being honest. Let me know if anything changes.
Right.
Which is to me, I'm like, how gracious is this dude? I wouldn't have even responded okay, quit wasting my time.
Right.
So I think I felt at my most unprofessional and my most indecisive, which I hate about myself. And I just imagine that everyone else can't stand it either.
Right.
And I'm I'm being indecisive, and I'm just wasting this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Both the guy responds I don't know, maybe he was pissed off, but he didn't respond as if he was. Right. He was super professional and nice and understood. So I think sometimes our personalities can over-exaggerate what the consequences will be.
Right.
Socially for not saying yes to something.
Right. But I think it's kind of key practicing that, that saying, or that putting that into practice is also super helpful for, us, because the other issue is we also don't want to be people who are seen as something counter to what we identify as. So I want to be someone, it's super key to me that people see me as a person who has integrity, and someone who gets things done, right? So then when I overcommit myself and I have to go back and do the, choose discomfort over resentment after I've already committed to it,
That's the worst feeling.
it's the worst because it's like, okay, I'm doing what I have to do for me, which is actually like, it's a step in the right direction because it's really healthy for me to not overcommit myself and then just resent this person for it. But at the same time, I feel like I'm going counter to like my core characteristics, which is like, I said I can do it. Therefore,
right, complete what you commit to. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to keep my word. And if I violate my own like personal moral values on 2 levels of integrity. And then also, wow, now this person's going to think that like I'm not dependable, that I can't get things done, and like it tarnishes my reputation.
I think the thing is like there's only so many people you can commit to and follow through for.
Right.
And sometimes so like in that thing I was like, well, this person probably thinks I'm not, like I didn't follow through. Right. But the 3 other people that I'm doing things for are probably like, oh, he's on time, he's doing good work.
Right.
Like, so it's just like, what's my number of like, the most important is like, does my wife think I'm committed? Okay, that's number 1.
Right.
My family.
Yes.
And then like, there's my main employer. And then, I mean, there does have to be like a prioritization because of the limits of your own abilities.
And I think that's just where, once you start putting that mindset into perspective of choosing discomfort over resentment, you actually won't get into those types of scenarios. Probably like, it'd be a super, super small percentage of the time because you're saying no out of the gate. The only other scenario is you have something come up afterwards that is truly more important. And at that point, like, it won't matter. And hopefully you'll be able to be vulnerable enough just to say, hey, I feel really terrible to do it, but this came up and I am overcommitted. So I'm not able to, I can't keep my word on this one, So.
I think sometimes for our personality too, that it's fun to convince someone that you are committed and that you can do something for them.
Oh, for sure.
So like when like that phone call I had with that guy, that like I didn't really want to write a blog about dental hygienists, right? If I really would have thought forward, besides I got this phone call with this dude, I'm going to convince him that I can write something for him and then I can do this thing.
Right.
Like I'm so excited about that because to me that's fun. Maybe I can work in sales someday, but like that process of convincing someone of my abilities and then them saying like, yes, let's do it.
Right.
That was like, yes. And then once I was like, oh, I have to write a blog about dental hygienists. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't know anything about that. I have no passion for that. I don't care.
Right.
It's like, I could probably do it, but it's going to take a lot of time and research and.
Yeah. Well, that's like I want everyone to like see me as like, wow, like that person is the best at everything. Like he seems like he can juggle everything and he always like does great work no matter what it is. He's, talented in multiple ways. Like that's totally something that I want, but it definitely gets me into those holes, of saying like, oh yeah, I can do that. Like I've done that with, like with helping people with websites and stuff. There's this like Men of Life ministry and they wanted a website. And, so I got asked if I could recommend somebody to help them because like with building the website, because they knew that I, was in IT and so I might know somebody.
Yeah.
And stupidly, I'm like, hey, like, if I say I can do this, then I'm going to be like the guy who's like, yeah, David built this. And people are going to see one more thing like, wow, David can also build websites. And so I'm like, oh, actually like, no,
not just Salesforce, but websites.
Like, oh no, I'll just do this for you. Like, yeah, like no problem, I'll do it. And then afterwards, I'm like, I don't enjoy building websites at all. Like, why in the world would I say yes to it? And then I'm completely roped into, now I have to do this thing. Now I also have to help in the time that they have issues with it. Like, it's completely out of my skill set. And you're actually setting yourself up to, like, why would I commit myself to do something that I'm actually not the best in the world at and not passionate about, because now I'm like double screwed. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Self-awareness.
Yes. It's
Self-awareness is huge. If you can figure out how to be self-aware.
Yeah.
Or you use other people to tell you, you can find honest people to tell you where you suck.
Right.
You can really make your life a lot better.
Yep.
You can make your decisions can be way more informed.
Yep. Definitely. It is key.
I think one thing back to goals.
Yep.
Is if you I think part of me will be able to get away with not writing them down if I can maintain like good decision making ability.
Right.
And like I think if you have enough self-awareness, you can set less benchmarks. So like
right.
Like I knew like I wanted to move to Ecuador. And I was committed to that, whether it was written down or not.
Yep.
So when opportunity arose to move to another country, I was decisive and made it happen. Because I was aware that was a desire.
Yep.
So I think sometimes if you're more aware of like your true desires.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's being aware of like, what are the things that
that I actually value.
Yeah, that tie into your purpose. Like, what are the things that actually either tie into your purpose or just, like, long term, you know, you want to be able to say that, like, I think for you, Dan, being someone who's adventurous, like, being someone who, like, is willing to just have fun and be adventurous is kind of something, at least, that I've seen in you. So, something like that just ties right in. It's not something you have to think about, like, well, how does this, like, I didn't have it on my goals sheet. It's like, no, it's an opportunity to be adventurous and to have fun. Like, I'm just going to do it. It's a no-brainer. Whereas if you're tied to your goals sheet, it also can definitely be very limiting, because you might have a fantastic opportunity come by and you just like, you let a piece of paper rule your decision making. So you're like, nah. Well, I said I wanted to buy a house in 3 years, and moving to Ecuador would totally screw that. So I guess I'm not going to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. Sometimes I think goals can hold you back.
For sure.
They can make you more tentative. They can, but yeah, no, I mean, they're probably good.
Well, and I think maybe part of that is you might have to kind of write out what is the process for if something new, like, sparks my attention or there's a new opportunity. Like, I always have to, like, you have to have a process for how do I then evaluate this and decide if it actually should be a new goal and should take the place of another goal. Because that might be helpful too, of like, you have the opportunity and you want to just be like, well, I already wrote these goals and they were important to me 6 months or 2 years ago. Like, things change. So you definitely have to have a process to be able to say, okay, well then what are are there 5 questions or whatever it is that I need to ask to then define, like, you know what, actually, this meets all 5 of my criteria. I think it's something that I probably should strongly consider, even if it conflicts with some of my other goals.
Yeah. Dude, this podcast, like, it was not on, I had no goals for starting a podcast.
Right.
And I actually, at the time when we started it, I thought it was a distraction from the writing I was trying to do.
Sure.
I was spending like these hours like podcasting and traveling and doing all this stuff. And I was like, I should probably be working on my website or like writing more things.
Yep.
More short stories. But I think too many times I've seen value in my life where I've just like made sometimes speed or the ability to make a quick decision it can bring really good things because I've super enjoyed this podcast and
Right.
I'm super glad we did it. And if I would have thought, I think sometimes if I would have thought about things more often, I would have said no and they wouldn't have been great.
Yeah.
Like when I started dating Kaylee, I was going to move to California and I told her I was moving there. And
Yep.
she thought I was going to ask her on a date and I was like, this is terrible. But my mindset was kind of like, I just need to ask you to date you right now because if I think about it anymore, I'm going to come up with reasons why not to do it.
Right.
She doesn't like to talk about that, but
Yep. Hey, it worked out.
right. But it super worked out. Like,
Yeah.
it was like one of the best decisions of my life. So I think there's like, it's trying to find that balance of when do I need to evaluate something and when do I need to say go and not use evaluating something as an excuse.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's weird. There's there's such a fine line because it's like you have to be connected to your purpose. You have to have some type of vision for the future. I think it's healthy to have some types of goals, especially like once you're married and stuff, because it helps make sure that you and your wife are like moving towards, like you have some type of unified direction for some things. But then you also have to be like able to live in the moment and be spontaneous and make decisions without having to like go through
without being paralyzed.
Yeah, exactly. So there's got to be a really healthy fine balance, and I think what you said about like a good amount of personal, like actually having personal awareness is key to all of it, because you have to understand, and it's kind of like you were saying with running, like you have to really know your limits and push like your mental stamina and all this stuff to be able to be successful and good at it, because if you start out too fast, you're going to burn out. If you don't start out fast enough, you're not going to make your goals. Like, so having that personal awareness to be able to plan for the future and also be totally willing to call an audible, and knowing what's really truly important and what's non-negotiable and what is negotiable in your life. I mean, that sets you up for success and everything.
I think the main point is that being a human is difficult.
Yes.
And you have to be able to manage multiple different ways of thinking, otherwise you'll get stuck.
Right. Dan's first book title, Being Human is Difficult.
A memoir.
Why I threw my goals away at the age of 26?
25.
Okay, 25.
I kind of switched towards, this summer I switched towards thinking that I was 26.
Yeah.
Even though I don't turn 26 until September.
Right.
So, yeah. Do you ever do that? Do you like switch your age in your brain?
Oh yeah. I'm definitely 24 right now in my brain.
If you're only 23.
But that's in August. That's less than a month away. I can be 24. It's okay.
Yeah.
23 just feels so young. I want to be 24 so that I feel older.
Yeah, you're 23. So is my wife.
Yeah.
I just like to hang out with people a couple grades down so I feel cool. You know what I mean?
Which is hilarious because I like to hang out with people a couple years older so that I feel cool.
Perfect.
Hey, we're a match made in heaven.
Mutually beneficial.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think this has been,
the Cowboys and Unicorns podcast?
Yeah, definitely. So, probably, well, not the next one, but probably the next one after, we will be united in the flesh.
Yeah, probably the next one after, actually.
Yeah. So.
Because I'm going to be really busy next week.
Right. Well, good deal. We will see you very soon in here.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. Goodbye, listeners.
Ciao.